Hello guys and welcome to a Diamond League Protoss versus Terran. We're going to be watching this game from the Protoss' perspective. This is a replay analysis. I'm going to be helping Impri get better at Protoss basically by giving him ideas on how to do things better. Telling him what he does which I think is good, telling him what he does which I think is bad. Right off the bat, I'm going to say that I think you could do this a little bit better with your pylon placement. I would rather you put your pylon, for instance, like maybe like right there instead of like right there. The reason why is because if you put your gateway like right there, it does literally nothing for you. Because the point you want to, the whole point of blocking or connecting a wall to something, a wall to the mineral line or a wall to the nexus, is you want to block the exit of the Reaper in one way. A Reaper could jump in to your main from like up here. He could literally run to the back of your mineral line, run around, and jump down. I didn't wall. Okay, well I feel like that's just a missed opportunity a little bit. Like if you just put the pylon there and the gateway there, because that could be the pylon, that could be the gateway. And it's the same exact thing as having it here and here. It's just that it actually creates a wall for the Reaper. Now, if you get harassed by a Reaper and the Reaper gets in, kills a probe, gets out, I will say that you could have... Also, what's this probe doing? You could have definitely utilized it better, I would say. Okay, this probe is too early as well. This scout is fine. You did it after the gateway, but it sat there forever. So I didn't like that. But this probe is too early. You're sending your probe one probe too fast. Also, did you... Hold on. Let me look at your Nexus. Your like build seems fucked up already. Did you... Yeah, okay, you did. You did Chrono Boost. The probe is just sitting there. I don't like that. But... You also could start that gas a little bit faster. See, like right now, you can start the gas. You can start the gas right now. You can start the gas right now with like this probe up here. It's like as soon as he gets minerals in his hand or something, make the gas. And then you make the next probe in queue right after you make the gas. You would not actually, because you can make both the probe and the gas together before the probe finishes. But the reason why this is actually kind of important is because you're going to resource block your mineral line like for a decent amount of time. Like you're going to be over 16 and then your gas will finish. So you miss out on like 12 gas this way early, which is kind of a big deal because your tech is based off of this. Okay. So yeah, and then yeah, from there it's all hunky-dory. Do you not actually rally to the mineral line here? Okay, you do. Good. One thing you're not doing as well that I think you could be doing, because you like there's nothing going on right now. There's literally nothing going on. Definitely stack your close patches too, because you have had one probe on this patch for a very long time. It finally fixed itself. But yeah, definitely try to maintain that a little bit better yourself. And then just know as well, you should not actually go down to your Nexus to build it until 20 supply. So, here, wait, I'm crazy. This is correct, actually. Sorry. You're just not building the probe. I was like, wait, what? I had a feeling. I was like, what the fuck? It seemed weird for me. I don't know why. But yeah, no, the probe's actually correct. You want to be... The 20th probe is going to be in the Nexus, and the 19th probe is the one that goes down and builds your expansion. If you build your core first, I don't like it. And it looks like you're actually going to wall here to here. I don't like that. Again, it defeats the whole purpose of a Reaper could come and jump here. Oh, just kidding. Build Nexus first. You're playing this way too safe. Now probe's sitting here again. If you build a pylon, I don't mind it. Okay, that's fine. Alright, and then... Jesus. Scouting the gas. Everything looks great. You see a Reaper, you see a factory, and you saw a lifted off barracks, which means he's going to build an add-on for that factory. Everything's fine for you. I wouldn't worry too much. To be honest, just seeing this already tells you you're fine until you have your hallucinated Phoenix Scout. Because I hope you make a sentry second. I hope you do. I don't like that. Also, I don't like your building placement. I don't like your building placement. The reason why is because you could actually trap units there, not only when you build them, if you rally like shit, but if you ever recall to this Nexus, units are get trapped there as well, guaranteed. So I don't like the way you built that. Also, you're playing against Terran. If this guy was really smart and he saw at any point in time ever that there were no stalkers in the main base and there were just a bunch of charge lots at some point in time and he wanted to drop you, he could actually drop in the center of this. And then your zealots would be like, ah, fuck, we can't get to it. Like you've just created an abusable spot in your base, essentially, is what you just did. So try never to do that. Try to never do that. Also, your second gateway is way too early. So I'm gonna go back and look at your build. So your scouting was fine. I don't give a shit about your scouting. It got everything you needed to see. I'm gonna look at your build specifically again. Because yeah, you're like as soon as you saw this, I'm just glad that you physically scouted that, and the fact that you did it with the gateway probe is totally cool. I'm down with that. I want us to look at your Nexus. Your second gas is way too early, by the way. Okay, so again, you should be going Nexus, then Core. Not the other way around. So I'm gonna tell you something really fast. The only time you should ever go Core before Gate, if you actually would have scouted properly and your probe didn't just sit there for like 12 seconds and then scout across the map, your probe would have been here a long time ago, and you could have scouted the ramp a lot faster after you saw, okay, he doesn't have a command center yet, which he shouldn't have had yet at that point, but you should be getting ready to see one soon. If instead what you saw was like 2 depots here, and no barracks at all in his base, and no gas as well, just 2 depots, no gas, I'd be like, okay, well your gateway is about to finish right now, go ahead and build that core first, and maybe build a second gateway before you build your Nexus, because chances are very high you're getting proxied. I'd be like, that makes sense. But if you blindly go core first, or if you scout someone who's doing a Reaper expand, and then you still go core first, you're losing a little bit of a lead you could have. You don't need to go core first against that. You could totally get away going with Nexus first, and you'll never get punished for it. Because here's the difference. This is the difference. One way gets more probes faster, the other way gets probes a little bit slower. Both ways defend the Reaper with the Stalker. It's just that the difference is with core first, you'll have a Stalker out like 15 seconds before the Reaper gets there, or like 12 seconds before the Reaper gets there. And the other way, you'll have a Stalker popping out as the Reaper jumps into your base. So they both can defend it. It's just one way is going to have a Stalker sitting there going like, where's Reaper at? And the other way is going to be like, you know, I have more probes or I have less probes. So you obviously want to, if you can defend it either way, you might as well go with the way that gives you more probes. And more chrono boost. Okay, so you made a second pylon. You've cut probes again. This is really bad. So you cut probes hard at 20 supply. This is bad. You should cut probes until, like, for a second, until you get your Nexus and your core down. The second both of those buildings are down, restart making probes. Do not chrono boost, but restart making probes. You actually cut probes. So like you should make a probe with the next 20 minerals. Right now you should have a probe being started. But you actually cut probes to build a pylon and a gas. It's way too much cutting going on right there. Because again, you can afford a pylon and a gas before you supply block if you restart probe production at 20 supply. So your build's already behind by like a full 2 probes now. And it's still going. Like, it's like 3 probes now. You're behind. And it's still going. This is like 4 probes you're behind. And then you're not chrono boosting your Nexus either. As soon as your second pylon finishes, so your second pylon was a little early as well, but in general, the second your second pylon finishes, the way this should time out is you should have 100 energy on your Nexus. Okay? To know you've done it correctly, you should have 100 energy on your Nexus, because it's going to be energy to not only chrono boost your stalker out of your gateway, but also energy to chrono boost your probes out of your Nexus. This is going to finish off your gas at your natural and also saturate your natural before it's done. Like, start sending probes there. Like, you should actually have... You're actually more like 3 probes behind right now, realistically. Because right around the time when you have 100 energy on your Nexus, your 3rd probe should be, like, popping out to fill it up the rest. And then you should be sending your Nexus rally point to your natural. I think you spent... And here's why I think your probes weren't being built. You spent way too much time scouting. Multitasking. It fucked you over. All you need to really know, honestly, all you need to know is, did he expand? That's it. That's all you need to know. And if he did not expand and he has like no production in his main base, that's then you need to start worrying a little bit more. Here's my point I'm trying to make. I don't give a... like, it doesn't matter what the Terran does. It doesn't matter what he does if he expands. It doesn't matter if he goes mech. It doesn't matter if he goes bio. It doesn't matter if he goes hybrid. It doesn't matter if he goes harass style. It doesn't matter if he goes greedy. The fact that he expanded tells you everything you need to know until you have a sentry. I would highly recommend getting a sentry second so that you can confirm scouts later on about what's going on. But nothing matters because you know you're not getting all in. That's all you need to know at this point in time. It's all you need to know. And you know it's impossible because you can't make a command center this fast, this early, and also all in. It's impossible to do that because it's so expensive. You don't need to worry too hard about what he's doing. You only really need to worry harder about what he's doing if this doesn't exist. And then you got to go, okay, now does he have double gas? Is he proxying me? Is he going for some weird tech all in? Then you got to try and figure out a little bit more about what the hell's going on, right? But you're reading so hard. Like the thing I'm disappointed about, or like that I think you should stop doing, is you're like fucking your macro up to read the most standard build possible from Terran, which is a Reaper expand. Like, you literally stared at his base, I feel like, for like 25 seconds. And it's the most standard it could ever be. Oh, there's nothing weird about this build. Yo, Rhoda, thank you very much for the prime. Like, the fact that he has that command center already tells you what he's doing. The fact that he has a Reaper already tells you what he's doing. Like, your probe should have not even died to the Reaper. Honestly, your probe should have already been going back home before the Reaper spawned. Because you don't need to know what he's doing. You can tell just by the fact that he has a command center, a supply depot, and a barracks. Even before seeing the gas, you already know what he's doing. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if anyone ever opens command center, like supply depot racks command center, and they have double gas, their build sucks balls. Like, that build is bad. And you can still confirm what kind of pressure it's going to be before it gets to your base if you go sentry second. It's not like these timings will hit you before you get to scout their base with a hallucinated Phoenix. That's why that thing is so fucking good. You physically will have, like, basically what I'm trying to say here is if he goes racks, barracks, or sorry, depot, racks, command center, and he goes double gas with that, he's going to literally have like 11 SCVs on the mineral line, or like 10 SCVs on the mineral line. Literally. It's going to be like less SCVs mining minerals than what you started with at 1 second in the game. If he were to do a build like that. Nobody will do a build like that. The only time anybody will ever go double gas early is if they do not expand. Because then they have the resources that cost 400 minerals. Instead of building a command center with it, they now build tech with it. And they're going to all-in you. Or do some timing to you. Then it makes more sense to scout, is what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense? Like, you don't need to even worry about shit as soon as you see that. As soon as you see that command center, nothing matters. Like, you're like, well, I already know I can't die now. It's easy. Easy mode. It's like a Reaper harass. It doesn't always have to be Reaper either. But you know you're not going to die. You should never die. You have like 3 minutes now guaranteed to react to whatever he's going to do. And 3 minutes is easily enough time to get a sentry out and hallucinated scout a phoenix into his base. That only takes like 1 minute, not 3 minutes. So yeah, you're being way too paranoid about this when you don't necessarily need to be. Like, your build's already behind. Like, anyone who plays like this as well, where you make your build fall behind because you scout, like you stare at their base way too hard, everything becomes harder to defend. No matter what, because you're not macroing anymore. Yo, Rhoda, thank you for the Twitch Prime, and Aloysia Spinnergas, thank you very much for the 17 a month a resub. My man. My man. But yeah, second gateway was also way too early. You should be making your, like, your gas needs to be saturated a lot faster. You can see you're having a little bit of gas problems right now. Like, you can't even afford a sentry right now. That's a problem. You should easily, and it's because your probe cut was what fucked you here, and you also built your first gas was late. Your second gas was very late. So, the point is, you should be able to make Warp Gate. You should be able to make a Stalker. You should be able to Chrono Boost a Stalker. And you should have 100 gas ready to go by the time the Stalker is done to make a Sentry. And when you're right, we'll look at exactly when your Stalker finished. How much gas do you have in the bank at that exact moment in time? You have 68. Okay, so your Stalker did just finish. 68 gas. And it's not even like you'd have exactly 100. You could actually have like 112 or like 116 gas right now. You could literally have so much more gas than you do. And then you could make that sentry. And then you could make a robo and a second gate at the same time. And then make a second stalker after the sentry. That's what you should be doing. Like every game against Terran. Because it deals with lots of different forms of pressure that can happen. It's very defensive. It's very versatile. And it also scouts really easily. If you don't make a sentry ever, and you're like, I don't know what's going on now, like, make a sentry. It's so good. Yeah, your second gateway should not be going down until your robo goes down. Those two buildings should be going down at the same time. If you're going to go robo opener like you did. And the reason so you do make a sentry. I'm glad that you make a sentry at least, but the reason why you couldn't afford this is because your macro was already off. You should have been able to afford it second. And then it makes it easier as well when you make it second to keep doing things like chrono boosting probes, because sentry is cheap as shit in minerals. So yeah, like, I'm not going to justify this and be like, oh, it's still good. It's bad. You're off. Your build's off. You're already behind in probes, which is why you couldn't afford it properly. And the fact that you now made a sentry, a full unit later, 30 seconds later than what it could have been, means your scouts are all going to be super delayed now. And getting scouts off on your Terran opponent is pretty nice early game. It's pretty important. And then as well, I also like, I also kind of like, if you were to build your second gateway in your robo, like right there and there, like put them in the front of your natural. I'm starting to like that myself a lot more, instead of stacking everything in the main, because it helps with Hellion run bys. It's very good against Hellions. Okay, your third is very greedy. You see, this third is not the worst, but it's also not calculated. It's not actually... It's a risk is what you're doing with doing it this fast with literally no scout. Now, if you made your sentry second, you could already have scouted into his base. Guaranteed. You could already have gone into his base, and you would already have a Phoenix on the map scouting. And the reason why this is risky for this base is for things like this, okay? Imagine that this Terran player is going for more of a timing off of two bases rather than a harass off of two bases. The way you can tell it's going to be one or the other is you stack multiple of the same building. Timings are more like multi-racks, multi-factory. Harass is more 1-1-1. Does that make sense? Harass is more hybridy, and timings are more focused on a tech structure. Because he'll have a lot of bio, he'll have a lot of mech units, like we're talking Hellion Cyclone or something, if he's going to do a timing. But if he's going to do a harass, it's usually something that's like 4 Hellions and a medevac, or 4 Hellions and a dropship, or 4 Widow Mines and a dropship, not like Hellion Cyclone, or like 4 Marauders and 16 Marines, or like 12 Marines. So if this was a timing, you'd be fucked for taking a third base. But if it's harass, you can get away with it. But you don't know that because you have no scout right now, because your sentry's super late. And if we look at his base, it's timing. So this third base, if he swaps this with this and he starts going into Cyclones and Hellions, it's going to be a real pain in the ass to hold this. Because you're doing it so greedy. Not saying you can't hold it, but I would say you have a higher chance of holding Hellion Cyclone because Hellion Cyclone ramps up a little bit slower than the Stimpack biotiming hits you. But if, like, for instance, if it was like the 3 racks stim or like double tech lab reactor and he showed up with like 4 Marauder, 12 Marine, and he just turned stim on, he could easily kill your third base. Easily. With it being this greedy. And again, I like that it's greedy if it was harass. But now you're cutting probes again. On both your Nexus. And you're not blocked. You're cutting probes for a long time. That was double Nexus as well. That was like 12 seconds of double Nexus cut, which is like 4 probes. Because you could chrono as well. I'm gonna say right now your probe count is probably a lot. Like your probe count right now could probably already be at like 45, 44. You've cut probes quite often in this game so far already. The only time you should ever have a probe cut, ever, within your first 3 bases, if you're playing as well as you can, is when you are at 20 supply and you take your Nexus and your core, and then you go right back into making probes and you never stop. Because you're playing a defensive reactionary style. Your Reforge is way too fast. Your Council is way too fast. You don't even have a Robo Bay. So you're building, like if you're actually going to go Colossus and you are eventually going to take the Robo Bay, or if you're going to go Disruptor or something, you're kind of fucking yourself up. Oh, okay, wait, sorry. Hold on. You actually scouted. I didn't actually watch you scout. Okay. So I actually changed what I'm about to say. If you were playing just like standard against average Terran, I would say you're wrong. But I agree with your scout. I'll look at your scout. Watch your scout. This is also, again, I bet right when your scout goes into his base is when you stop fucking building probes. I'm gonna stare at this right now and see if you stop. If this is when you stop building probes as well. I mean, you're blocked, unfortunately. Okay, well you're blocked, so that's not really a good example. Supply block is also something kind of sucks. But I'm gonna see if you build like your third's done. Okay, so it's happening. It is happening again a little bit. Your third's done. You are. You did just start another probe though, but your third is not even being touched. Your third is still not being touched. Okay, there we go. Finally. Okay, so I do think you have overemphasis sometimes when you scout, where you just stop doing macro shit. Try to make sure you're always keeping tabs on that. Try, like, for instance, also when you build a third base, try to make sure, like, the second you build it, I just add it into your Nexus hotkey, which you did not do. You didn't add it in until you started making probes on it. You can add it in while it's being built, so just make sure you always do that. Because, like, I can't tell you how unacceptable how you're fucking yourself over is. I cannot tell you how unacceptable it is for you to get better promotions, higher leagues. You will never advance if you fuck yourself over repeatedly all the time like this. You have to really keep on top of that shit. Like, it just can't happen. The only time it ever makes sense for you to get fucked over, and even then you want to avoid it from happening, right? But the only time it can ever make sense is when your opponent is fucking you over, and it's then fucking you over because you're like, oh god, I'm forgetting to make probes because I'm dealing with tank timing or stuff like that, and maybe your opponent is also slowing his own build down too because he's focusing really hard on doing damage to you. But you are actually falling behind every time you scout him because you just stop macroing in ways. Like, you supply block, you don't build probes, you don't do certain things you need to be doing. It's your build, like, again, if this was a time trial, okay? If this was like, if there was like a ghost version of Protoss that you're competing against, and the ghost version of Protoss was like the most efficient of whatever could possibly be happening right now, the most efficient, like everything is perfect, you would already be like 40 seconds behind from that build, and nothing has died, well, except for your scouting probe died right there to a Reaper. That's an acceptable loss because it was a scout. But your build is already so far behind for no reason other than the fact that things are just out of order and things are being neglected. While you scouted the first time, and now, you know, while you're setting up this one, you block. And you have, like, right now, you know, you made a pylon right here. You're macroing fine. You stopped making probes though for a second there. But then as soon as you send that fucking Phoenix out, as soon as you send it out, also, you made these buildings before you scouted it. I'm actually glad I looked at your vision.
Yeah.
You make your forge and your council right now, and you don't actually know what he's doing. This makes me think that you do this a lot. You haven't looked at his base yet. You started it before you got into his base. I will say it's not incorrect. Maybe you just know that this guy's a mech player all the time. This is what I would have to guess now. But the fact that you built those buildings before you knew he was going mech in this particular game is incorrect. Because this is actually awful if he was not going mech. If he was going bio, this is really bad. Because you are rushing a robo and you are not utilizing a robo. And the whole point of having a third base not die is you prioritize a robo. It's AoE. You have to have it. It's area of effect damage. That's what AoE stands for. Area of effect. Everyone always asks me, what is AoE? You have to have Colossus or something. If you literally have no AoE and he hits your third base with bio, you just die. But with what you just scouted, where it's factory Hellion, triple factory Hellion so far with double tech lab, this now is okay. But yeah, you did this before. So make sure, for the love of God, if you're playing a standard Terran who's not going mech, do not build these buildings this fast. You want to actually build your council and forge at like third base saturation. Like we're talking like 15 probes on your third or something like that. You don't want to, you do not want you to, or you do not want to skip your Robo Bay. If you open Robo first, you're committed to it. The only way that this would make sense this fast is if you didn't even open Robo at all, and you went Council first, got Blink really fast, and then made a Robo second for like Observers, while you went Mass Blink Stalker, or something like that. That's totally different build though, and you're not doing that build. You're going Robo first, so like the Blink timing is totally fucked already. If you were gonna go Blink now, if it was Bio, I really want you to understand that concept, because you're gonna. I see this build. If you do this every game, you will die to Bio every time. Like you'll always die to Bio. I don't understand how the fuck you win against Bio with playing like this. You'll always die. Yeah, you have to get the Robo Bay first, and you do not make the Council and Forges until seriously like mostly saturated third base, when you can actually afford it. Because Impri, I know you got the replay that I sent out to other people as well from other coaching lessons, like the 2-2 timing Storm Colossus build thing. This is if you were blindly trying to replicate this game, this is definitely not it. I would recommend highly going back and watching that again, because I know you have it. If you want a standard build, but again, I'll drop it now from that point, because I know you're not playing Bio, but the only reason why I'm stressing it so hard is because again you did this before you even knew he was going mech. So if this is your standard, you need to stop doing this, and you need to go back and look at that replay that I have for you that you downloaded, because my god, like you're not hitting beats here. But now we'll go into a mech game, because you scouted it now and you've blindly chosen to go for the right thing, which is good for you. It's good news. But now we'll talk about mech, because that's what it is. And if people on YouTube are wondering right now, ViBE, what are you talking about? What's this other replay he has? Previous coaching lessons I've done for Protosses, like Masters Protosses and stuff, probably like a few videos before this one has been uploaded. Those videos is what I'm talking about. I coached other Protosses, like ways to do like standard PvT openers. Yeah, that's what we're kind of referring to. Gateways are way too fast, man. Okay, so everything's getting fucked here, Impri. Everything's getting messed up, dude. I'll tell you what your priority should be right now. Priority number 1. As soon as you scouted this, priority number 1 should have been keep making probes. You cut probes again a few times there to build other shit. Priority number 2, I would say, would be getting Council really early. Like you did. But you built it blindly, but again, the fact that you have it is nice. Blink. Chrono boost that shit immediately. Because if you don't get Blink, you're gonna die to Cyclones. And Blink also could handle, I know it's not Starport, but Blink not only can shut down Cyclones really well, but it also deals really well with people who add in air units. Like Banshees or BCs or whatever. Blink is a very, very, very good upgrade against mech early game. Yo, Jude the Obscure, thank you very much, dude, for the 2-month resub. Welcome back, man. Welcome back. Blink is huge. You should be getting that as a priority, and you should be chrono boosting it. I would not recommend Immortals right now as much. I mean, you can make them, but I would recommend getting Blink. Also, this 3 observer thing, I've talked about this before. It's something that I like. If you're playing against Bio, not as much if you're playing against Mech, because you kind of need the gas. If you again, you know you're playing against Mech, You know you're playing against mech. You've scouted it now. You could have scouted it earlier if you would have made the sentry second. So you could have, you know, optimized your build even faster. But the triple observer thing that I recommend is you keep one with your army. You have one on the side of your natural and one on the side of like your third and like your main area. So you could have an observer on oversight mode right there and an observer on oversight mode like right there. It would allow you to see drops really easy that are going to harass you with like Hellions or Widow Mines or whatever. But that's not happening. That's not happening in this game. He's not dropping you. And you know that because of Triple Factory, right? So cranking out observers repeatedly wasn't necessarily something you needed to do. I think you needed at least one though, because the reason why is because you get an observer with Stalker. So again, you want an observer for detection against Widow Mines and against Banshees and stuff like that. And again, there's no Banshees. We know there's no Banshees at the moment because of the fact that he opened Triple Factory, but there could be Widow Mines. So getting an observer is good. I'm just gonna throw like one observer at least is good. Also, occasionally I see people in chat are like, "What league is this? What the fuck?" Guys, I'm pretty critical on everybody when it comes to replay analysis, and I feel like everyone will always assume the league is lower than what it is because of the way I speak about it. Because the reason why I'm critical is because I feel like it gives you the most improvement. I don't think he's playing under a diamond level. I don't. I think he's playing at diamond level. But I'm very critical on things that he can improve on. And it's little things that add up a lot. That's why I spend so much time with the early game, because if you don't talk about the early game and you're like, "Ah, you're doing fucking great, bro. Let's talk about your late game engagements." The shittier the early game is, the harder the late game will always be. Early game is like the foundation for late game. So if you have an early game that has mistakes all over the place, where it could be little ones here, a little one there, a little one here, a little one there, it's going to massively, like, they're all going to add up and it's going to kind of screw you over time. So yeah, I mean, chat, don't be so mean. Relax. But yeah, again, Blink should be your priority right now. You should be chrono boosting probes as well. Like Blink should be getting chronoed. You should be also chrono boosting probes. I like that you made one forge and a council to deal now with mech. And again, this is assuming you knew it was mech. So again, that's the point. Don't forget that. But getting +1 weapons, getting Blink, and then just making stalkers off 2 gateways while you make probes. As soon as you have an excess amount of resources, then you can make more gates. This is way too fast. I would say these gates should be going down again when your third base is almost fully saturated. Like 15 probes or like 14 probes. Not 1 or 2. And with more starting to be made. And again, I do think you could have more probes right now if you just didn't miss probes earlier, multiple times. Notice how you're not building units though? Like you're blocked again as well, which is unfortunate. You're not getting Blink either too. This is like the game breaking upgrade here right now. This is the most important thing out of everything. This is like priority number 1. Blink is huge. Dude, get that shit right there. Get it. I'm gonna leave this clicked on until I see you get it. Okay, and now you're producing. Okay, now you're finally getting Blink. As super late, very late upgrade. Now you're making your Robo Bay. I don't mind. You're making way too fast of a Stargate. I don't mind that you make a Robo Bay. I don't mind that you make a Robo Bay this late against the mech. I do think you should still make one eventually. But I don't mind that you make it after you prioritize Blink and more gates and a ground weapons. Because your priority right now should be Blink, Stalkers, to not die. But the fact that you did not prioritize Blink breaks all of this. You actually don't have Blink Stalkers. And then there's also a lot of time that's going by repeatedly where you're not spinning your gateways. Just watch. Watch. We're going to back this up a little for a second here. We're going to wait. We're going to watch and wait until you build these gates. Right here. Just watch this shit. Watch the uptime of your gateways. So you're about to build gates. You're ready to build 2 units right now. Okay, so 5:14, you're ready to build 2 units. At 6:07, you built 2 units. That took you, what is that? Like 53 seconds or something? I don't even know. Yeah, it's like 53 seconds. It took you 53 seconds to make units out of 2 gateways, which is actually like double that, dude, because you have 2 gateways that are not producing. So that's fucking huge at not producing stuff. Like, that's your problem. That's a big problem right there. It's way more important than building 3 more gates. Just utilizing what you already have. And then let's watch it again. It happens a lot more. And now it's off of 5 gates. Okay, so at 6:11, these gates all start being powered up. We'll be fair. We'll say 6:13, even though the first one was done at 6:11. 6:13, 3 gateways. The 3 represents 3 active gates that are ready to go. 6:13. Okay, you made 1 unit. Now you have the other 2 gates that came off cooldown. And we're at 6:29. Now you have all 5 gates doing nothing. We're going on another minute here of no, like, you made 1 unit out of 5 gates in a minute. Still haven't made a unit. You still have not made a unit. This is going on 90 seconds. We're getting ready to go on 2 minutes here. No units were made. Still. Do you see what I mean? Like, you're kind of missing the beat here. Okay, you just made units. That was the first time in, like, you made 1 unit in 2 minutes off of 5 gateways. And then at that, like, the 2-minute mark, basically, you made 5 units. Right now, at like 8:06, you made all 5 units. That's fucking crazy, dude. That's so much wasted production time. Because think about this. If 2 minutes, we're not even going to talk about the first previous missed time of like a minute. But 2 minutes of 5 gateways. You can make a stalker every 20 seconds. Each gateway could make 3 stalkers a minute. Essentially, we're averaging it, okay? I know it's not exact. It's close though. So if I can make 3 stalkers a minute off of a gateway, it means I can make 6 stalkers a gateway every 2 minutes, and you missed 2 minutes of 5 gateways. So that's 6 stalkers times 5 gates. That's 30 fucking stalkers you could have had. Now, I'm not saying you could afford 30 stalkers, but what I'm saying, because there's no fucking way you literally could afford that right now, but that's the point. You made these gateways so fucking fast, and you can't afford that. If you just produce out of what you had, 2 gateway, you could still crank out way more stalkers than what you have. Like, how many stalkers do you have at this point? You have 10. You have 10 stalkers at 8 minutes. Now, if we're talking about making 2 stalkers a minute, you had both gateways, 1 and 2, and you also had 2 stalkers out of those first 10. So we're actually going to say the number is 8 here, because you made your first 2 stalkers right away before you even made your second gate, because you were dealing with the Reaper and shit. You only needed to make 8 stalkers from about minute 3 to minute 8. 8 stalkers in 5 minutes. Can you make 8 stalkers off of 2 gates? That's the question. Because again, 3 minutes, you already had 2 stalkers out of 10, and you're needing to get to 10 here, which is what you currently have, and you had 2 gateways to do it. If you can make 2 stalkers every 20 seconds, or sorry, if you can make 3 stalkers per minute off of each gate, and you have 5 minutes, That's 15 stalkers in 5 minutes per gateway. You could make 30 stalkers off of 2 gates. Now, we're going to take the number down a little bit because it's not exactly 20. If I'm going to give you a real number here, you could probably make like 26 stalkers in 5 minutes. 26 stalkers in like 5 minutes off of 2 gates if you are maximizing the cooldown, like never missing it. That's realistic. And you have 10 off of 5 gates. The point I'm trying to make here is your build is fucked up. And now you're making it, like, I don't mind that you're making a lot more gates. At this point, it's okay because the thing is what, like, your probe count could actually afford bigger rounds of units now. Because, like, a lot of people don't think about StarCraft this way. You have to realize this, okay? Literally think about this. When you start a game of StarCraft 2, everything is a cost. Everything is a cost. Probes are a cost. They're a generator, but they're also a cost. Pylons are a cost. Gas is a cost. Fucking production is a cost. Tech is a cost. Upgrades are a cost. It's just utilizing production is a cost. Everything is a fucking cost, right? And your income is not full power yet. It's growing as you also have all these costs that are going with the growing economy. But the second your economy is done, you know what usually happens? You can just like X out a lot of these costs. Like you can be like, pylons, no longer a cost. Why? Because we have 200 supply max available. Okay, pylons, no longer a cost. All that pylon money we had to use before can go into production now. Probes, no longer a cost. Why is that? Because we're at the correct probe count we want. We don't need to make any more. We're at the ideal amount. So probes, no longer a cost. Economy, full power. So we not only cut costs, but we're also in a full power economy. And then once we build all the production we need, production, cut that out too. No longer a cost. Once upgrades are done, cut that out. No longer a cost. Every time we cut a cost out of our the process of growing throughout the game, every time we cut a cost, where does it go? It just pools more resources for production. It once again pools more resources for production repeatedly every time. So you should explode your gateways once you cut costs like this, but you should not explode your gateways when you're still in the cost phase. And understanding that concept will really help you understand how to develop a good economy and not do shit like don't build stalkers for forever, for like minutes at a time, and then just crank out a bunch of gateways before you can afford it. Like these 5 gates right here, way too early. The 3 gates especially. I will say you could have made a couple more gates, like once your 3rd was saturated, but you made these gates when your 3rd was starting to be saturated, which is like way too early. Because not only do you have to then build it early, but then you have to also utilize it early, and you didn't utilize it, so it was pointless to make it that early. But once you cut costs and you start having more money freed up for production, that's when production makes sense. Slamming production out then is great because you can actually use it. Also, did you wall this base in? No, you didn't. That's so awkwardly... I can't believe that's a doorway. Alright. So. He's got 8 tanks. He's got 18 Hellbats. He's got 2 Thors. And he's got a few SCVs. He's got 7 SCVs. If you just made more shit, you'd be okay here. But I would say you are under supply where you could be. And what I think you could have made as well. Also, I think you never once again scouted a second time, or I don't know, you might have. Actually was mostly focused on your build. But let me see. What do you actually... No, you did. You scouted a second time. I'll say this. The correct way to micro against this and engage this army you can see him on your base now. You can be like, oh, okay, he's got, you know, tank Hellbat, Thor. Cool. The perfect way to micro this, in my opinion, would be, ideally, if you prioritized Blink early, you could then get Charge as well, because Charge is also good against mech as long as Hellbats don't exist. What you could do, well, I mean, you're kind of fucked now because you don't have access to it, but what you could have done is you could have prioritized Blink fast, and then you could have made Charge after. Guaranteed you could have had both upgrades by 9 minutes. Guaranteed. It's not even a question. It's guaranteed. You could have had both. You just never even started Charge. And you also started Blink very late. If you had both upgrades, this is how you can micro this. Start warping in Zealots. Like here or something. Or here. I don't give a shit where. Just don't warp them in here. You could easily start warping in Zealots. Let's look at your gateways. Do you have... How many gateways are ready to go? None are ready to go at the moment. But let's watch this, okay? I'm gonna watch how long of time went by between warp-ins for you. Let's watch warp-in utilization here. So your warp-ins are coming online again. At like 8:25, they came online again. 8:25. You use them again at 8:40. So it's another round of time where you kind of missed it again. You're supply blocked again, unfortunately, and you have no pylons in production. So that sucks. If you know, try to stop doing that. Try your best to make sure you're always maximizing your supply and, you know, keeping that shit rolling. It'll be easier as well to do it if you don't build excessive amounts of production before you can afford it. Now, proper way to micro this would literally be, you have a good amount of stalkers. Like 16 to 20 stalkers is a great amount of stalkers to have. You don't have to go exclusively stalkers. This is, I would say go exclusively stalkers if it was Cyclone and Hylian, but here's the thing, okay? You have to start thinking about StarCraft this way. Like, now that you're Diamond League, you have to start understanding these concepts. If I were to ask you, I'm going to ask you a question, Impri, and you don't have to answer it, I just want you to think about it. If I were to ask you, is he going Hellion Cyclone, what would you say? Just think about it. I'll give you like a few seconds to think about it while I say, thank you, Johnny Panera, for the 2-month resub. Thanks, ViBE, for the content. Cheers from Brazil. Thank you very much, bro. Appreciate you, dude. Shout out to Brazil. Okay, so if I asked you, is he going Cyclone Hylian, what would you say? Right? You're like, some of you might be like, I have no fucking clue. I don't know. Maybe. Sure. I don't know. How am I supposed to know that? I haven't seen his composition yet. Well, here's what I would tell you. I would say the answer is no. He is not going Cyclone Hylian. And the reason why is because he hasn't attacked you with it yet. Cyclone Hylian is an army that scales like shit if it doesn't do damage. It scales horribly. So if he just goes Cyclone Hylian and sits there and sits there and sits there and sits there defensively, his army is going to progressively get shittier and shittier and shittier and shittier the longer he allows you to do your thing. Because the whole point of Cyclone Hylian is to cripple your opponent. It is actually a terrible army if your opponent is rich. Cyclone Hylian is all about crippling the economy of your opponent because that's what Cyclone Hylian is good at. It's good at overpowering when it has higher supply. Cyclone Hylian is like the Terran form of roaches. Like roaches, same thing. What if I was going mass roaches as Zerg and I just sat there with roaches just chilling there and I maxed out on roaches and I never once attacked you? You just took a third and a fourth base and I have max roaches but I'm sitting there and suddenly when I finally do take a fight, you have like 180 supply of good Protoss shit and I have just roaches. I'm gonna die because roaches suck when that happens. Roaches scale horribly, just like Cyclone Hylian scales horribly. So if I ask you, is this guy going Cyclone Hylian? The answer should be no, because he's not attacking you. The window of opportunity is gone at Cyclone Hylian already. He should have been attacking you since like 5 minutes if he was going Cyclone Hylian. And he hasn't done shit to you yet. So you should be expecting, if you haven't even seen it yet, but you know it's factories, you should already be expecting tank, Thor, Hellbat, stuff like that. You should already be expecting that's what his composition is going to be like. Already. And what you've given yourself to deal with it is not bad.
Oh,
Mr. Boggles, thank you for the 19-month resub. Much love, dude. And Asimov, thank you very much for the 3-month resub. Appreciate you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You've given yourself a decent composition to deal with it because you've given yourself Disruptor, which is really good. You've given yourself Stalker. The only thing you're missing is you've missed Charge, and you could make yourself Zealots. And the way you would micro this, going back to the beginning of what we talked about, he's in your base now. He's walking around. Perfect way to micro this would be walk your army up here, not all the way into him. Don't blink into his ass, but just walk your army close to him, aggro his army, get his attention basically, and then throw disruptors at his cyclones, or at his hellbats. Throw disruptor shots at the hellbats, blow up the majority of them, and then you would have the ability to go into charge lots. And as soon as the hellbats are dead, you engage with charge lot first and then blink in behind it. So charge lots are the ones getting shot, which means tanks are shooting themselves because they're shooting zealots that are on tanks. And then stalkers just clean house really fast behind the zealots. And also, zealots die slower than stalkers because they're light armor, not armored. So tanks do 40 damage a shot instead of 70 damage a shot once they're sieged. That's how you should engage this. And if you just blink into his face and don't even deal with the hellbats, what's going to happen is you're going to blink into hellbats. Your stalkers are going to shoot the hellbats. Hellbats are going to shoot back at your stalkers, which is going to do actually a decent amount of damage. They do 20 fucking damage in a cleave per attack. But then what's going to really happen is the hellbats are going to still be there, and then they're going to absorb damage long enough for the tanks to just pound your fucking face in. Yep. You didn't use the disruptors at all. Would I add in Tempest here? If you had access to Tempest, you could have killed this with Tempest as well. But I'm telling you right now, the first thing I told you is what I would have done with how you set it up. You have to realize, Impri, okay? Dude, you got to think about it like this, all right? Okay? Asking, would you add in Tempest here, is irrelevant. And you know why it's irrelevant? Because you didn't give yourself the ability to even have it. You prioritized gateways. So you should have utilized your choice, is what I'm trying to tell you. You can't just make like fucking 20 gates and then be like, or how many gates do you actually have? You have 10 gates over here and you have 3 more over here. So you have 13 gates. You can't just make 13 gateways and then take a fight like that and then go, you know what? Should have made Tempest. That's a horrible way to analyze that for yourself. Because it completely defeats the purpose of your whole fucking build. Up to this point. You should have thought about it. How can I deal with this the best with what I have? Which you could have. I'm not saying you're dead. But you did not use disruptors to kill hellbats, which is what they should have done. Because they could have killed hellbats outside of tank range. And hellbats are what his damage sponge is here. A disruptor one-shots a hellbat, and you could have killed like clumps of like 6 of them or something. Got rid of the majority. And then also, hellbats are what deals with zealot. And if you had charge lot, which could be made out of gateways, charge lots can deal with the tanks and the Thors way easier because he doesn't have a lot of Thors. Mass Thors can actually handle zealots pretty decently, but tanks cannot handle zealots for shit because unless there's not enough zealots and they just die before they engage. So total missed opportunity there. And now you're dead because you just can't deal with the tanks and you keep blinking into tanks. You're basically trying to counter rock with scissors here repeatedly, and that's incorrect. StarCraft 2 is literally a game of hard counters, and you're letting him counter you. You have to just understand the core concept of like, what is a tank good against? What is a hellbat good against? Hellbats are good against zealots. Tanks are good against stalkers. So how can I make this work for myself? What do I have access to? Well, disruptors are really good against hellbats. Disruptors are just really good against mech in general, but disruptors can actually kill the hellbats. And then what does that do? It creates a counter for you now to now have zealots counter tanks. The reason why it makes sense to kill the Hellbats with the Disruptors is because realistically, if he's sieged on his tanks, and you're like, fuck it, Disruptors, go kill those tanks, what's going to happen to your Disruptors? They're going to get spotted vision-wise by the Hellbats. They're going to get shot by not only the Hellbats as well, but also the tanks, and then they're going to die. So obviously you can't kill the tanks here because they're sieged. Because he has shit in your face pushing you. But you can kill the shit in your face pushing you because you can then siege that with Disruptors out of siege tank range. And Hellbats are also slow as fuck, so they can't really dodge Disruptor shots very easily.
Files your base. Slay them. Upgrade complete. Your forces grow more powerful.
And now you're just dead because you have not taken the best fights. And also Zealots, like I said before, Zealots do counter tanks really well. But non-charge lots, just standard slow Zealots, they don't counter shit. They're awful.
I'm here in the shadows.
Yeah, if I look at resources lost, I would say you're probably like 3 times higher than him. Yeah, like you are getting destroyed repeatedly because you keep trying to counter like a rock with a pair of scissors. I'm just gonna throw it out there too. I know you've probably heard me talk before about saying Disruptors are really good at tank timings, at killing the tanks. But just know that that concept only makes sense when there's like 3 tanks or less. And there's also like, you know, bio covering it too. It's like a guy who's gonna bunker push you on 2 bases, and it's like you kill the 3 tanks and suddenly it's over. That's when going for Disruptor shots against tanks makes sense. Because you can just whittle down the tank count really well, and then you can just overpower with Stalkers after that, because Stalkers are good against the rest of the cleanup there. But we're talking about a situation that's like within the first like 5 minutes of the game. Once you're at a situation like this, where it's like over 100 supply of mech, you shouldn't really be expecting the Disruptors to be killing tanks anymore. The only time you could ever kill tanks with Disruptors is if you just caught him in the middle of the map, he's not sieged, and he's in like a big ball of tanks where they're just like driving around unsieged. And you're like, oh fuck, I could blow up like 7 at once right now. Then obviously that's opportunity, and that's great to take it. But that's not what's happening right here though. He's already sieged. And you're trying to kill his tanks every time. And you're losing your units every time you try to do it. Which is going to happen every time. Because killing tanks in this type of format is not realistic. This is not a tank timing anymore. This is like a mech power army, which you need to honestly, the only way you're going to deal with tanks on the ground is with Zealots, and the only way Zealots are going to get the job done with what you have is if you make your fucking Disruptors kill the Hellbats, which means also your Disruptors don't die, because look how forward they are. They're not being covered by tanks if your Disruptors are here and you just shoot the Hellbats repeatedly. And now you're going to blink forward. I imagine you're about to blink forward, and all your Stalkers are just going to die again. Again, that's another situation of trying to counter a rock with a pair of scissors. And Zealots, again, like Zealots are the right choice when the Hellbats are dead. But again, if you don't have charge, they're awful. You have to have charge. Because watch, like they're supposed. You should win the fight right now. You should win this fight with equal numbers of Zealots, or even maybe even more Zealots than tanks. You have 8 Zealots. He has 7 tanks. Zealots are amazing against tanks. They really are, because you just make the tanks kill themselves, and tanks actually kill themselves like crazy when they're splashing Zealots on themselves. But what's going to happen is your Zealots are probably going to kill no tanks right now, because your Zealots are just going to be like just getting fucking pounded as they just walk to the tanks. And let's observe.
Do not let this transgression go untouched. The enemy is destroying.
Yeah, it's
Must defend them.
not good.
Korshala
Because again, a zealot is not good against tanks because it makes the zealot is just its side blades are so good that it can just pound through a tank's armor and it just kills the tank. The zealot actually doesn't do shit to a tank, but what it does do is it connects to a tank really fast, and it makes tanks go, just shoot that fucking zealot right there, and it's like, well, he's like directly inside of the tank, don't fucking care, shoot it, and then the zealot suddenly dies and the tank dies, because tanks are just shooting tanks basically at that point. And tanks kill tanks really fucking fast. A tank only has 175 hit points and it does 80 fucking damage to mech. It basically almost two-shots itself. And if you have 8 tanks just shooting each other constantly, tanks are going to just disappear really fast. So, yeah, I mean, your build, straight up, was slow. For many reasons we talked about. Your macro kind of fell off. It dipped off repeatedly. Your composition was actually okay. The only thing you fucked up on was you didn't have charge, and you really didn't make zealots ever appropriately. You kept making stalkers a lot, and your strategy choice of just blinking into the tanks and trying to kill tanks and trying to kill tanks and blinking into tanks and disruptor shotting tanks and trying to kill tanks and blinking onto tanks, like over and over and over and over. You're countering yourself at that point. And you need to be killing the Hellbats with the disruptors. You need to be peppering on stalker damage to support zealots, but you need to be engaging with zealots when the Hellbats are dead. So the stalkers should be killing the Hellbats that don't, like, if there's 10 Hellbats, okay, this is how it should be microed. 10 Hellbats are there. You throw a disruptor shot at it. You kill 8 out of 10 Hellbats. The Hellbats continue to walk forward. Your stalkers absorb it out of siege tank range and kill the remaining 2 out of 10 Hellbats. Then zealots run forward and engage on top of the tanks. Tanks start shooting zealots. You blink in behind that, and you start adding on more stalker damage behind your zealots, and his tank line will just disappear really fast. And as soon as you overpower his tank line one time, it's really easy to just retain control of the game from that point on, because it's really hard to replace a mech army that dies because it takes forever to build it up. Especially if he does the timing to you at like 140 supply or 150 supply when he only had 3 factories, which is what he had when he hit you here. He only had 3 factories when he hit you there. And then he added on more factories after that. So if you would have killed his army here, doing the correct micro, you could have actually denied this. So he would have been stuck on 2 bases, and he could never afford this. 6 factories. He could only continue to afford like 3 factories, and then he mines out and he suddenly can't afford 3 factories anymore either, because he's losing his income he had before, because this is not 8 mineral patches anymore, it's only 4. So you could play a contained game, and then you could ultimately then tech switch in a Tempest and kill him with Tempest. That's how you could have played this. But yeah, I hope it helps. I hope what we just talked about helps you out, man. But his build was weird as well. Not really. I've never seen a 2-base Terran and attacking it 10 minutes. No, I would not say his build was weird. His build was aggressive, is what it was. Because he didn't prioritize the 3rd base. He prioritized 3 factories before a 3rd. That is aggressive. Again, remember what I said? It goes back all the way to the beginning, Impri. Remember what I said? Timing Terran. Triple factory. Now, mech hits later. So, there's 2 forms of mech, and they both hit later than bio timings. You have Hellion Cyclone, which hits a little bit later than bio. And then you have tank timings, which hit a lot later than bio. But it is a tank timing. And I said, with how greedy your fucking 3rd is, it's going to be hard to hold it. With how early you took it. But that would only really, I would say that would only really make sense against Hellion Cyclone or bio, straight up bio, like stim pack timings. Because tank timings are late enough for you to actually gain enough benefit for it to make it worth it. Like you could get away with the greed. You just didn't give yourself the correct options of charge lots as well, and you never really prioritized blink. So like you had it at the end there, but like you only had it. You didn't have charge as well. His build wasn't weird though. His build was a timing. He didn't. He prioritized production before a 3rd, so it's not weird. It's basically means he's going to be aggressive. And if you defend that aggression and you don't lose any economy, you're so fucking far ahead. Alright, anyways. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope it made sense. I hope it helps people out there that are trying to get better at the game. I hope it's informative. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Until next time, good luck to you guys. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Peace, everybody. Goodbye.